close attention. There's something left in me that demands I think about all the consequences, all the costs. A frigid, paralyzing sense of loss that hurts too deep to excise. I'm terrified of what's to come and what choices I'll make. I survived the drop, unlike everyone I ever knew or loved, only to be taken by them and locked in this stone cell. I found a flimsy old journal written here in the dirt. I read it to myself, and now I'll invite you to read it too. There's something scribbled on the inside of the journal cover. You won't be able to make it out, but I've looked at it so long that I think I know what it says. It says, "Hello to you, stranger. If you found this journal, I know you're scared shitless right now. This little book holds the true accounts of what happened to just one sad kid. You see, when all this started, I was there. I wrote my story, and in doing so, I wrote the story of many, many others out there. Those who can't speak for themselves these days. To anyone, absolutely anyone left who finds this journal,
read it with care. Let me give you this, my story, to you." Journal entry 1, December. Hi. I don't really know how to start these things, but my therapist wants me to write a journal, so I guess that's what I'm doing now. It's supposed to help me figure myself out or something, like thoughts and emotions and stuff. I don't know. I got some gaming in, talked to my friends in the server, and one of my boys, Mike, is having a hard time right now. His girlfriend broke up with him, and he was just losing his fucking mind over it. And really venting and shit. But then something really, really weird happened. So, Mike is talking about the girl, how she broke his heart, how she's a total bitch, and that sort of thing. And then this new guy pops up in the server. None of us recognize his username. So we asked him who he was. People change their URLs all the time, and we figured it might be one of our other friends. But this guy, he just stayed silent for a while as Mike went on, yelling into the headset, making kill shots, pretending the NPCs were his ex. Yeah, he's kind of an asshole sometimes. But then, finally, the new guy spoke up. And Mike just shut his mouth instantly. We all did. She'll be dead by tomorrow morning. That's what the guy said. And then he just left the server. We were all a little freaked out, but figured he was just some troll. It's an open server, and hey, the internet's just like that sometimes. It was still a fucked up thing to say, though. And Mike's my friend, so I'm gonna try DMing the weird guy a bit later, just to tell him to back off. Plus, it'll be easy to message him. We all saw his username, and it's a pretty memorable one. The Bad Timeline. Journal entry 2. Okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to be writing in this journal twice a day or once a day, but I don't care. I talked to the guy tonight, to the Bad Timeline, and he told me things. At first, he just seemed crazy or like a very dedicated troll. You know, someone with way too much time on their hands. I wasn't even fully expecting him to message me back, but he did. And shit, I found myself transfixed. When I sent the first message, I just wrote, "Hey man, what you did in there wasn't cool. Mike's going through a really hard time right now. Just fuck off and get a real hobby, okay? His following response was written with perfect, precise typing and grammar. It's unusual to see that on the internet. Made him seem older. His exact words were this: "Hi, I'm not a troll. I've been studying a certain phenomenon for years. That phenomenon is growing. It's getting worse. And it's all going to become clear tomorrow. Everyone will finally believe me. But this isn't the way I wanted to be believed. They're coming." Who is they? Are you one of those conspiracy theory nuts? His reply was nearly instant, as though he'd pre-typed the same text block out to millions of other people. It read, "I've been called that before, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong. As for who they are, you'll find that out on your own. People have been talking and theorizing about them for decades. They've been given different names. You'll think I'm crazier if I type it out right. But I guess that doesn't matter now, does it? Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Take your pick. I'll let you, and everyone else on this godforsaken planet, define them for yourselves. Best of luck. Oh, and about Alexandra, I'm sorry, but I meant it. She'll likely be dead by tomorrow." He stopped typing. We hadn't actually mentioned the name of Mike's ex-girlfriend anywhere on the server, or over our headsets during the whole stream. There was just no way for this creep to have known her name. Alexandra. Journal entry 3, 3:01 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I heard sirens screaming all night. I looked out my bedroom window, but all I could see were these painfully bright blinking lights. And all I could hear was a bunch of yelling. But now everything has gone so quiet. Creepy. Journal entry 4, 7 a.m. Something really bad happened overnight. I'm still in shock, so I'm scribbling down as much as I can. I don't know what's gonna happen yet. I saw them. At around 4 or 5 a.m., the noises outside started up. Fire and rescue, police, even a tornado warning siren, and more screaming. And this is gonna seem strange, not all the voices sounded human. I pressed my face to the window and saw enormous figures holding these gnarly, ancient-looking torches. They seemed big, even from a distance. Too big to be regular people. Too big to be human. Even though I couldn't see them up close, I felt ill as I watched them stalk and shred their way through the streets that glistened beneath the fiery lights. The smaller human shapes that I could make out from the small bedroom window were being tossed aside, especially if they were, at any point, in the way of that gruesome parade of unknowable creatures. I saw all these dark, oily smears on the manicured suburban lawns and sidewalks, and for once in my life, I felt like praying. I've never been all that religious. I realized I might also become just another dark smear on the ground, like my neighbors. There was nothing I could personally do, though, and I thought that maybe I'd be safe if I just stayed inside. That maybe my family would be safe if we locked all the doors and stayed quiet. I was wrong. Journal entry 5, night. Writing is the only thing I can think of to do now. Maybe it'll help? When it happened, I was inside my bedroom praying my ass off. Didn't take long to be ripped away from my home and everything I'd ever known. A booming sound rumbled up the stairs. There was a crash, hinges keening, clattering. My mom's frightened voice. I kept my bedroom door shut. I'm not proud of this. I hid under my bed. Whatever was outside had gotten in. I heard my dad and my sister. So much yelling. I just waited, too terrified to move. Wonder what my therapist would think of me now. Bet she's dead too. Kept hiding. Footsteps got louder, closer, heavier. My dad's shotgun went off. A squelch like ripping flesh. Then something pulled me out from underneath the bed. And I couldn't hear anything but my own blood pumping in my ears. Forced downstairs, into torchlight. Twisted, sneering faces all around me. They towered over me and their limbs seemed too long for their bodies. They were furry. Not like kittens or anything, like bristles. Thick, brown bristles on some, white on others. Any sharper or thicker, they'd resemble porcupine quills. But their faces... Oh God, their fucking faces. They dragged me, stumbling from my family home. I didn't see my parents' bodies, or my sister. So I still hope, you know? Now through the hellish streets, horrifying, surreal scenes everywhere. Multitudes of these giants clustered together, smashing up vehicles, sidewalks, roads, lampposts, storefronts, even entire buildings, depending on the size of the cluster, with nothing more than their bodies. They writhed and aimed their rage at monuments and historical sites, churches, billboards, and signs, or anything depicting a human likeness. A group of them gathered around the main branch of the library. My mom always brought me there as a kid. I never realized until I saw it being dismantled brick by brick how much it meant to me. At the center of the library ruins was a blazing bonfire. The flames reached as high as where the library's second floor would have been. The creatures were dumping big armloads of books, magazines, and newspapers on the fire. Many walking with their eyes clenched shut. Others touched the books cautiously, as one might handle a poisonous snake. They dragged me very close to the flame, my body raked over trails of books and other debris that littered the streets. We passed a paperback copy of Orwell's Animal Farm. Its spine was cracked. Pages fanned out like the appendages of a squashed bug, trampled by God knows how many naked, elongated feet. I can't quite say what happened next. I must have been drugged or passed out or in some kind of coma or something. Because days, maybe weeks passed and I had no memory of it. I say it could have been weeks because the creature had been busy reshaping the world. I found that I had been residing in a somewhat quiet area just outside the city, a place that I had begun to refer to as the cages. On the outside, the cages looked like a rudimentary tower. It loomed high and was distinctively lopsided. It had been built hastily, flanked by thick woods that separated residential communities from the city center. Two peculiar statues, if you can call them that, stood guard next to the gate like sentinels. I couldn't tell what they were meant to resemble, and I only caught the briefest of glimpses of them whenever I'm led past them. Still, there was something almost spiritual about them. Something that felt safe. Journal entry 6. The Bigfoot creatures, or Squatch, as I later hear someone call them, examined my journal today. It's a miracle it stayed with me so long. Flipping it upside down and grunting to one another with confusion. They must have decided it wasn't a threat. Why didn't it trigger the same fear and rage I saw at the library? Because they tossed it toward me without a second glance, and I quickly shoved it back in the pocket of my pajama pants, alongside my pen, before being led further into the bowels of my prison. Everything the Squatch built was so peculiar and so roughly planned. My lodgings, for example. They forced me inside what was little more than a dirty hole dug in stone, like a tiny cave, with a small door made of surprisingly hard wooden bars placed at its mouth like jagged teeth. When they first put me here, I made a frantic effort to pull and scrape at the bars. The whole cell just appeared to be so sloppily forged, I'd figure there must be some weakness in it. There wasn't. Who would have guessed that wood could be so indestructible? Trapped. At this point, I hadn't seen any other people, but I could hear them. My cell was only one barred hole in a hallway of many. There were screams of defiance and frustration, crying, mumbling I couldn't quite make out, but no one was in any mood to speak to each other. In the morning, they'd shove small satchels of food and water into the cell. The Squatch were quick and careless whenever they fed us. The satchels were thrown through the bars at a distance, and whatever monster was delivering them would stalk away immediately after. I think I'd do anything not to feel so alone. Journal entry 7. Two Squatch visited my cell. They pushed a small figurine through the bars, motioned for me to pick it up. It was made of hardened clay, whitish gray, and shaped to vaguely resemble a long-limbed bipedal being. Probably some Squatch's shitty attempt to sculpt one of its own. Didn't matter, because what truly fascinated me about the figurine wasn't its shape, but its textures. There were tiny, indented symbols inscribed all over it. And the sensation of these crude, I don't know what you would call them, runes? The figurine was also oily in that same difficult-to-place way as the food and the water satchels they used. Weirdest of all, for the briefest of moments, I could almost understand what the two Squatch outside my cell were saying. Their grunts morphed into simple words in my head. Again. Tomorrow. I'm still nervous that the creatures will come back at any moment, find me writing, and decide to take the journal after all. As a precaution, I'm hiding it under a clump of dirt when I'm not using it. Journal entry 8. What happened today is confounding. As promised, the two Squatch returned. They'd let me keep the figurine in my cell, where I'd briefly buried it and unearthed it again, over and over, trying to stop myself from constantly staring at it, touching it, and holding it close to my chest, my heart. Then they opened the door to my cell. Out of some wild instinct, I darted towards the opening, towards freedom. Of course, I was swatted back like an insect and nearly blacked out. Then I was being dragged away. They brought me upstairs, past the cages, into another hallway and a room. It was large with rough-hewn wooden floors. What captured my attention first, as my head cleared and the pain settled, were the chairs. They were wicker, but fashioned from twigs that looked sharp enough to make them unnervingly spiky in the backs and in the seats. They didn't make me sit, though. Instead, they yanked me to the floor, where a collection of less humanoid figurines were stationed. There were 4. Though still awkwardly shaped, It was clear enough that one was meant to represent a building I knew well. The library I wrote about before. Another one was carved like... Okay, it's hard to describe, but I think it was meant to be a railroad? The third was easily comprehensible. It was a simple straw effigy in the clear-cut shape of a human. I stared at these objects while the Squatch lurked over me, watching. I didn't know what they wanted from me, but then one of them ran a set of oily, clawed, elongated fingers through my matted hair, gently repeating the motion until I realized, with shock, that it was petting me. Even worse, I liked it. They petted me, making me touch and stroke and examine all the figurines. And then, somehow, the figurines shaped like the library and the railroad began to sear my hands and burn themselves into my mind. I can't explain it, but it hurt to touch those objects. It hurt to look at them. But squeezing the other figurine, the one shaped like them, was oddly comforting. Still, I didn't enjoy these sensations. Didn't understand them. So I dropped the Squatch figurine and swatted the others away. Both Squatch bellowed with rage. They yanked me to my feet, pulling me towards the chairs. I had just enough time to think, "Oh God, no," before I was pushed down into one. The upturned spikes of so many sharpened twigs pierced me in multiple places. My left shoulder slammed into one and it slipped right in. I probably screamed, but I couldn't hear my own voice through the pain. The spikes on the seat must have been roughly carved because they didn't slide into my thighs so much as tear through them.